Happy New Year! More like 2020, the extended edition.
It is long since we had any hope.
As we were thinking up some strange nostalgia phenomenon for this New Year's episode, we remembered Bat Boy. You know, the little hybrid boy-bat child allegedly found in a cave that terrified people on the cover of our nation's tabloids and every grocery store checkout line in the early 90s.
He was an evil creature who was constantly escaping our nation's top protected government labs, ready to terrorize us at any given second.
Well, upon digging more into the history of this bat child, we eventually discovered that we, Cracked, were kind of complicit in creating him. Whoops! Bat Boy was a half-bat, half-boy, all-hunk hybrid creature who was found in a cave in West Virginia by government officials in the early 70s. However, he was kept as a very confidential government secret and only formally shared with the American public in June 1993. Who was this so-called Bat Boy, and how could something so unnatural even exist, and why was our government hiding it from us? If you were alive in the early 90s during the height of the Bat Boy craze, you probably remember seeing this little guy all over the place. Up until the late 90s, a tabloid called Weekly World News was dominating our nation's grocery store checkout lines with predominantly made-up stories and billing them as factually true. Or at least, they didn't go out of their way to state that they weren't true. In fact, they pretty much doubled down with the slogan, "Nothing but the truth," which is a huge red flag. You don't need to say something is true if it inherently is. It's kind of like me reminding you that it's absolutely true that I'm married to Mark Ruffalo. I don't need to remind you because it's true. It's an inherent fact, and that's how the truth works.
I'm flattered.
Weekly World News was making up outlandish stories on the regular. They used huge sensational headlines in big bold fonts that would capture our attention in lines and hopefully inspire an impulse buy. These stories aided to a multitude of common conspiracies. Remember, at the time, we had no idea that these articles were fake, despite their overt outlandishness, and we didn't have the internet to help fact-check us, so we pretty much took it all at face value. Oh, we were so cute and naive in the 90s. That's definitely a thing we grew out of.
What the hell have you guys been doing for 30 years?
So, most of America thought that there was a real little Bat Boy out there flying around all by his lonesome, terrorizing people because he himself isn't loved by anyone. Bat Boy quickly became a kind of anti-hero who we were obsessed with knowing everything about. In fact, the debut Weekly World News issue that featured his face on the cover was one of the most sold issues in the magazine's history. Bat Boy tapped into whatever it is about our psyches that, upon seeing something horrifying, we're totally unable to look away from.
No, Megan. No! No! Look away!
As our obsession with Bat Boy unfolded, so did his increasingly intricate backstory. Printed in the magazine for issues to come were comics as well as legends, periodically revealing to us the Bat Boy saga. The story goes that a scientist named Dr. Ron Dillon found Bat Boy in a hellish cave in West Virginia, and upon further studies he concluded that Bat Boy was about 10 years old, his father a bat, and his mom a human named Susan Boy.
He's not like any other human being I've ever seen.
Dr. Dillon goes on to explain that he's a relic from the 17th century when bat people hybrids lived in full colonies and actually existed. Dr. Dillon warns us that Bat Boy is a danger to humankind because he drinks blood from a crazy straw, which seems counterintuitive to having sharp teeth. That detail seems kind of wacky.
I'm the wackiest, there's no question. I can dance in my pants and in your face.
The Bat Boy continuum went on and on for years as we followed Bat Boy in a plethora of scenarios. While his usual stories depicted him getting captured by scientists, getting put into labs, making great heroic escapes, getting captured again, and then escaping again over and over, there were other even kookier stories, such as Bat Boy Bites Santa Claus, where I assume Bat Boy attacks someone we know and love, and Bat Boy Behind Bars, where I assume he pays the price for it, and Batty Mitzvah, where Bat Boy goes from Bat Boy to a Batman. Holy shit. Is that Batman's actual origin? Anyway, there are so many strange story titles I can go on forever because apparently the Bat Boy legend is never ending. In our minds, Bat Boy became a sort of fan fiction saga based on the actual story, blurring all the lines and becoming too meta for any of us to even handle.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Batboy became so ingrained in our culture that we not only followed his story and the comics based on his life, but he appeared everywhere, from TV shows.
Wait, but I already told Batboy he could live in our basement till spring.
Is there a problem, Stan?
To eventually an off-Broadway musical called, you guessed it, Batboy the Musical. Batboy officially became the Weekly World News' mascot, and when the magazine ceased its print edition in 2007, Neil McGuinness, an old fan of the magazine, purchased the company to continue a new online publication under the official name Batboy LLC. Even the cave where Batboy was allegedly found in Lewisburg, West Virginia, remains a tourist destination to this day. Steve Silverberg, the current owner of the cave touring company Lost World Caverns, actually provided the helmets, cabineers, and other equipment that was used in Batboy the Musical's opening number, and fully embraces the lore of Batboy. Okay, so if Batboy didn't crawl out of a cave in the 70s, where did he come from? Well, cartoonist Dick Culpa was illustrating for Weekly World News when he was asked one day to create a space alien baby, and he did. Culpa's managing editor at the time put away the drawing for weeks and forgot about it. He apparently states that he was tired of alien baby stories, a common theme for the magazine, and wanted something different, which seems like the entire vibe of that place. I can only imagine what it was like working there. I'll paint a scene for you. Hey, cartoonist, draw us a baby alien so we can make up a weird story about it. And the cartoonist is like, okay, here you go. And then the boss is like, hey, why'd you draw another baby alien? We have too many baby aliens and I'm tired of seeing them. And the cartoonist is like, whoa, I drew a baby alien because you asked me to draw a baby alien. This is a toxic work environment and I hate it here, except I can't say anything about it because I need this job, so I guess I'll just draw something else. Wow. Working there probably sucked. So Culpa finagled the drawing a few more times and eventually drew up the sharp-toothed, black-eyed little monster we love and fear today. Culpa claims that after having created Batboy, it was still weeks before the magazine's publisher even decided to use the drawing, but when they finally did, bam! They sold almost 1 million copies of that one issue alone, putting Culpa on the map as a cartoonist. Okay, and what does Cracked have to do with it? Well, please don't be mad at me, but it's nothing really. Except that after Culpa's 10 years at the Weekly World News, eventually becoming the art director and having co-created this iconic character, Culpa went on to acquire Cracked magazine and began publishing again after its sporadic releases in the 90s. He bought Cracked back from 2000 to 2004, giving it a new voice and making it comic-focused, although still only releasing a few issues before reaching its nadir when they pretended Cheap Trick guitarist Rick Nielsen was their new publisher. Shockingly, that publicity stunt didn't last enough to save the Cracked magazine, and it wasn't quite the comeback he and Cracked magazine had hoped. Theoretically, in the loosest of terms, Batboy is our weird pop culture baby brother that we never asked for. But our relationship with Batboy isn't entirely benign. In 2001, Cracked, along with a bunch of other niche tabloid magazines, were targeted by the Anthrax scare. This may sound like something that the Weekly World News might publish, but no, Cracked actually was near the heart of the Anthrax attack at American Media Inc. And because Cracked shared the same building with them, we were fully investigated by the FBI. It eventually led to all our archival photographs stored in our office having to be destroyed because of contamination. So who sent the anthrax? Was it an attempted attack on our nation's most niche tabloid magazines? Or was it Batboy himself, seeking revenge? I can see the headlines already. Batboy and the bad powder, or Batboy is a bad boy, or Batboy attacks the only living family he has. I guess we'll never know. Do you remember Batboy? Were you in on the hype? Or are you Batboy and you're watching this and you're like, what are people saying about me these days? Comment below and hit that like and subscribe button. I have to go because me and my husband, Mark Ruffalo, we have tickets to dinner theater. I know, it's like dinner theater in times like these. Mark Ruffalo loves dinner theater. You know, in between his push-ups and fighting for democracy and filming the Hulk and tussling his perfectly soft curls. Dinner theater. He loves it.